Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2 is my favourite Star Wars game of all time and one of my favourite games of all time in general. I have completed this game probably over 30 times at this point in my life. My whole channel is pretty much dedicated to this game franchise and I feel like I know it like I know the back of my own hand. And unlike a lot of video game reviews, I'm not coming into this completely unaware of what I'm getting. I already have a level of expectation that's been built over 15 years of playing it, and truthfully I'm going to be comparing it to that in this review. So if you're expecting a typical game review where I talk about it as if it's my first ever experience, that's not what you're going to get. You're instead going to get a review that is honest and gives you the best rundown of what you can expect playing this game on a Nintendo Switch in comparison to playing it on its optimal platform. So, first things first, the Switch port doesn't really do anything new. If you're expecting some major bug fixes, graphical updates, content updates, you're not going to get that. This literally is a direct port of, from what I can tell, to be the console version of the game. In fact, it's almost that direct of a port that it lags in the exact same spots that even the PC version does. The Switch port has of course been given high definition support and it's been optimized to run both docked and in handheld mode, but for me, handheld is the best place to play this game. I have a Switch OLED and it looks great. Well, I mean it looks as good as a 15-year-old game is going to look, but I'm really happy with how it turned out visually. However, when you dock it and play it on a monitor, I can't say the same thing. It still runs in high definition, it's still full screen, but the cutscenes and especially the dialogue scenes have this strange aspect ratio. And so it blocks off the majority of the screen with thick black bars, which makes those dialogue screens a little less immersive. Now yes, this also happens on other versions of the game, but when it's docked on the Switch, these black bars are so unbelievably intrusive, and it feels like there's more black bar than there is actual game. When using the Switch itself though, this isn't a problem in the slightest, because it fits that ratio perfectly and it looks great. And I feel like maybe there could have been an option to give it better widescreen optimization for when you do dock it and play it on a monitor, but sadly you can't. But I do know this is the same with the Xbox version too, and I really don't understand this because Aspyr were the ones that came in and actually gave the game widescreen support on PC, which gave the game a modernized look, and you guys can see it side by side on the screen now, the difference that it actually makes. And I don't understand why this couldn't be done on consoles. I'm sure there's a perfectly valid reason for it, but for me it just makes the game look more dated than it needs to. Now, I haven't played Knights of the Old Republic 2 on a console since I was a kid on the original Xbox, but from what I could remember in terms of gameplay, it runs the exact same as it did then. The user interface is the same as the console port, it plays the exact same way, and while I've become very accustomed to how it plays on a PC, I think it generally runs and plays really well. Cycling through your characters is easy, cycling through your abilities and items is easy, and I have to say I'm honestly surprised. I thought it would be a little bit more difficult playing on a Switch, and truthfully it wasn't. So in terms of gameplay, it's the same great Knights of the Old Republic experience. However, one thing I was disappointed in is the complete lack of any kind of touchscreen support. For a game like this, I feel like having touchscreen would have just made things easier, and not only that, but touchscreen would have just made navigating the environment simpler too, but instead you just have to kind of like cycle through everything with the bumpers. Now I would have let them get away with this because it is the console port and maybe touchscreen support is something difficult to implement into an old game, but the mobile versions of the game have touchscreen support. If they could do it for the mobile versions of the game, then they should have done it for the Switch, and I feel like when you're using a handheld touchscreen device, it kind of misses the touchscreen. In terms of general performance though, the game runs smooth as a charm. Yes, there are moments where it becomes a little bit choppy, and I actually think it sometimes runs a little bit worse when it's played docked. Like I said, it seems to run smoother on all accounts in handheld, but there generally hasn't been a time where I've been playing the game and I thought to myself that it's lagging too much or the frames are dropping too hard. But there are small moments here and there, but like I said, these are literally the exact same on PC, so I think this is actually just a KOTOR 2 problem and not the port. But in the like 25 to 30 hours that I've played of the Switch port, I really didn't have a problem with it performance-wise when it came to the general running of the game. The gameplay was smooth and fun, so a big thumbs up for me there. They've also added, to my knowledge, a really nice thing that doesn't exist in the PC version of the game, and it's where the HUD will actually fade out and give you a more immersive experience as the UI isn't taking up as much of the screen. And I don't know if this was in the Xbox version, but if it is something that Aspyr has added, I really liked this little detail. Now, here is my biggest gripe with the Switch port so far on release. In case you're unaware, we're going to be receiving the restored content mod for the Switch port of the game, which is an incredible thing for all of us, especially for those of you that haven't played it before. Knights of the Old Republic 2 was extremely unfinished upon its original release due to Lucasfilm forcing Obsidian to push the game out before it was done, and this showed with an absolute cacophony of missing content. But a group of incredible fans went out of their way to essentially re-add everything that Obsidian cut that could still be found in the game's files. This is known as the Restored Content mod, and it is the definitive way to play Knights of the Old Republic 2, and this has been widely backed even by the original developers of the game, and Aspyr are also aware of this, so we're going to be getting the mod as DLC. Now, I love the game regardless of whether or not it's the Restored Content mod or the base game, but I feel like announcing that the Restored Content mod is coming to the game but after release is a huge mistake. As much as many of us are going to be playing this game again, I'm sure there are many of you that are going to be playing this for the first time. And the truth is, you're going to miss out on the definitive experience playing KOTOR 2 on Switch before the Restored Content mod DLC is released. You are essentially going to be playing an unfinished version of Knights of the Old Republic 2, and for me, I just don't understand why they've released it without the Restored Content mod, while announcing they're going to add the Restored Content mod. For me, it would have just made so much more sense if they just delayed the game until they were ready to release the mod alongside it, so that everybody who plays this game, especially the newer players, are going to get the definitive experience of it out of the box. But with that said, talking about the vanilla game, I still think the story is incredible. It is, for me, hands down the best Star Wars story of all time, and despite there being a lot of missing dialogue interactions, storylines, and cutscenes that I know should be there, because I've played the Restored Content mod many times, I still believe that the story is cohesive and it makes a lot of sense even in the unfinished vanilla version, so I guess that's going to come down to you, the player. Keeping on the topic of gripes, there are a few bugs that really hamper the experience at times. One of these is a dialogue bug that forces you to essentially skip all of the dialogue that's happening in a certain scenario, but I'm not going to blame the Switch port on this because it does happen in the PC version sometimes, but I've noticed it happens a lot more on the Switch. And the sad thing is, it happens during what are extremely important character moments and brilliant pieces of dialogue delivery, so you're going to miss out on a lot of really good moments because of this specific bug. And the thing is, I don't know if it's something that Aspyr could even fix because they would need the original source code for the game. They may not be able to literally go in and fix it, so maybe it's just a KOTOR 2 problem. But it does happen less in the Restored Content mod on PC, I'm sure of it, so like I said, that mod can't come soon enough. Talking of bugs, there are also bugs that don't really hinder the game experience, but they do exist. Most of these bugs are more funny. If anything, it's just silly little things like character animations going a bit haywire and T-poses, and then you've got stuff like Mira showing up in the Jek-Tar without a pressure suit, and sometimes there's a bug where level up symbols won't appear on the player portrait. But if anything, small bugs like this actually give it a little bit more charm, but that could be a biased opinion of mine because I have played this game so many times now that new little bugs like that make me laugh, but for new time players this might be a little bit off-putting. Also, there are some moments here and there where the music seems to cut out randomly. I noticed this more often in the menus and it tends to happen a little bit more during combat, but again, not a major problem, but it's there. Also, there was another small issue that I found in the game, and that was in the upgrade menu. It was sometimes really difficult to kind of tell what you were selecting because the glow around the icons was really faint. I'm only mentioning this because I've never had this problem on any other platform but the Switch, and while it isn't a massive problem, it can be a little bit annoying. Now, here are the bigger problems that I've had with the game. The cutscenes in the game are really bad. If the cutscene has any kind of black in it, it causes this strange green grainy effect, which doesn't exist in the original version of the game at all. At least I've never seen it before in my 15 years of playing it, and this happens when the game is both docked and in handheld play. I'm gonna go as far as saying that some of the cutscenes are actually unwatchable, it's that bad, and I just don't get what they've done to it. They must have made an edit of some capacity for these cutscenes to run on the Switch, because they are pretty buggy on the PC too, but whatever they've done has really busted them visually. I've also had over 6 hard crashes in this game so far, and they are completely random. Although truthfully, I can't sit here and tell you if this is the Switch port's fault or if it is just KOTOR 2 being the problem, so it's just a warning. But a word to the wise is that you constantly save this game just to save yourself the trouble of it crashing at a bad point. But with that said, another letdown is that there are very few save spaces. Which to me is a shame, because when you're playing an RPG of this scale that has so many choices to be made, sometimes you just want to be able to go back and do something a little bit differently, and the Switch port unfortunately limits that with really harsh save limits. Now look, it may seem like I'm coming across as more negative than positive with this port, but like I said earlier, I'm not trying to give you a review of the game itself, but more so on how it compares to the best versions of it. And I want to reiterate that I think that Knights of the Old Republic 2 is a masterpiece. It's for me the best Star Wars game ever made, and it's the best Star Wars story ever written, and I don't want to dissuade you from playing it if you never have, just because the Switch port isn't the most optimal way to play it. At the end of the day, the Switch port is providing you with a new way of playing this masterpiece of a game, and when the restored content mod does come out, I implore everybody to get this on Switch if they've never played it as soon as they can. But anyway, this review is getting longer than I anticipated, so I'm going to wrap things up here and come to a conclusion. Should you buy Knights of the Old Republic 2 on Nintendo Switch? For me, it comes down to a number of factors. If you haven't played the game before, I'm honestly going to say no, not right now, not at release. If I'm perfectly honest, just knowing that the restored content mod is coming, whether it be in a few days, weeks, or even months, I would actually hold off of buying this game straight away, or at least playing it until the DLC comes out so that you can have the definitive KOTOR 2 experience. That opinion is also the same for those of you that have never played the restored content mod but have played the original game. If you want to play the game again but in the way that it was intended to be played, I would just wait a little while for the mod to come out and then get the Switch port of KOTOR 2. And for those of you that have played the restored content mod, or for those of you that have only played the restored content mod, then I would say yes, definitely get it. If you've only ever played the restored content mod, I think it's actually a good thing to play the original version just so you can see how much the restored content mod adds to the game. And the Switch version really doesn't cost a lot of money. It's one of the all-time gaming classics, and it feels really nice just to be able to play it on a handheld device. You know, whether you're on a train or you're just having to wait somewhere for a long period of time, there is no better way to pass the time than by playing Knights of the Old Republic, and the Switch port gives you that experience, and in my opinion, it gives you a better experience than it does on mobile. The game is optimized well, it performs well on the Switch, and if you love Knights of the Old Republic 2, you're going to love it on the Switch because the Switch doesn't take anything away from the base experience, and if anything, it gives you a new, fun, handheld experience of the game which most of us have never had before. I also want to thank Aspyr for sending me out a copy of this game early so I could get through the game and experience as much of it as possible for this review. As always, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button, it helps me out a great deal. And remember, if you choose to do nothing, well, apathy is death. Also, if you haven't, perhaps consider subscribing to join the biggest growing Knights of the Old Republic community on YouTube. I'll see you guys in the next video. But until then, may the Force be with you. Always.